that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares?
Hi, warriors. Today, I want to talk to you guys about a personal story that has had me making some amazing changes in my life. And I thought I would share it with you in case you might find any of this information valuable or for yourself or somebody that you can pass it on to. So, with that being said, welcome to Soul Spark, a podcast where we embark on the grief warrior's path. I'm Rachel Vasquez, your host, guide, and ally on this transformative journey. And if you don't know what I do, I'm a widow empowerment coach and a grief to resilience expert. I help people on a journey from a life of loss or transition into a positive space of empowerment and recreating what's possible in the life that they're stepping into. So, with that being said, let's get to it. To, so, it was only a few months ago, in I believe the beginning of November. I came back from a business trip and I had been in Miami for a few days, and my diet had not been very good. I can say that. I've had weight issues since my husband passed away. I had put on 100 pounds. And through that course, I had also been on a program where I lost 50 pounds. I began traveling. Some old eating habits started to come back in. And then I slowly started to put on the weight. So the reason for that backstory is I thought it was what was leading to some of my pain, discomfort, and overall just not feeling well. And it turned out that actually what I had was pancreatitis. I had been misdiagnosed the first time that I went into the hospital. I went again a week later, and I was told it was pancreatitis, and they did, in fact, have to take out my gallbladder. And so they kept me for a few days and then prepped me for surgery. As I was being wheeled down the hallway, I started to panic and I started to think about, oh shit, my kids. Like, I'm going into surgery. Like, this is a big deal because I kept thinking, oh, it's a gallbladder. It's everybody gets that done once in a, it's very common. And I hadn't really been afraid of it until I was heading into the surgery room. And as I was there, feeling very vulnerable under a sheet and having people, yelling out instructions to me, and I'm trying to pay attention to what everyone's saying. And I just see this like oxygen mask coming towards my face. And she goes, "You need a little bit of oxygen. Here it comes." And as soon as she put it on my face, I immediately felt like I couldn't breathe. And I started to get scared, and the only thing I can picture is what my face must have looked like. Like, I must have looked terrified. The the feelings that I had inside were horror of, "Oh my gosh, I'm a widow and I have 4 children, and they need their mother, and I don't have anything together right now. And what happens if something happens to me? Who are they going to live with? Who is going to help them through the next phases of their life and continue to support them from the grief of losing their father?" And then I was out. So I didn't think much of anything after that. And clearly, I came through the surgery and I did very well. A following week later, I had another bout of pancreatitis that landed me back into the hospital. And that was a very difficult and horrific experience this other time around because there was a lot of things that happened in my time at the hospital that really should not have happened. And I really would never wish those things on to anyone. And as I was laying there in the hospital bed again, it started to recall to my mind of going in for surgery, getting ready to go under the anesthesia, and realizing I still don't have my stuff together. And I don't even know where to begin. Like, having your stuff together is something that older people do. It's something that people do, when they're grown-ups. And it didn't occur to me that that would be me. And my husband was 45 when he passed away. And we had certain conversations about, quality of care and quality of life as to like what that would look like. And then that was pretty much where all of the conversations ended. And I started to think of the decisions that I had to make at the time of his death. Like, was he going to be buried? Was he going to be cremated? And we'd had some discussion as to that, but I haven't talked about it for myself with anyone else now. So this started the wheels turning into, I really need to get my shit together. And I reached out to my friend, and if you've watched any of my previous episodes, you would know Cindy Toledo, who is a programs manager for Modern Widows Club. And I said, Cindy, can you believe that I don't have my stuff together here? I'm an advocate for Modern Widows Club. I am a widow. I have gone through this process. I know how important it is to have these things together. And here I have nothing done. I don't have a will. I don't have insurance. I don't even know where to start. So she recalled listening to a speaker a few years ago by the name of Chanel Reynolds. And she said, maybe you should get her book because I think it's called Get Your Shit Together. And I said, "Oh my gosh, okay, let me check it out." So I ordered it and it's called What Matters Most: The Get Your Stuff Together Guide to Wills, Money, Insurance, and Life's What Ifs. So I do want to put a little disclaimer in this point. Um, this book is not for you if you are newly wedded or very raw in your grieving process. But this is one hell of a book. And she took me on her journey of widowhood, and it was absolutely amazing. Her journey was parallel to mine in a lot of ways. And her thought process that she takes you through as to getting things together, why it's necessary, where she was at her point in her life with the things that she had together really was an eye-opening experience for me. And it's a fantastic story. And I just, in so many ways, she's one of my dearest friends in my head. And that's all I have to say about that. I do recommend if you have a book that you're interested in, and wanting to find a new book to read. Again, it's Chanel Reynolds and it's fantastic. But really what she gets into is the nuances of one, she's telling her amazing story, which is raw and it's heartfelt and it's very moving. And then on the other level, she's talking about practical ways and things that we need to have into place and what the actual facts are about that. So for having your wills together, and not just a will, but also a living will. Who have I talked to about, what my quality of life looks like and my idea of care in that process. So, making sure that the people that I communicate those things with or to are able mentally, emotionally to carry out whatever it is that I want out of my life if something were to happen. The other thing is talking about insurance. And as somebody now who is a solopreneur, but came from the corporate world and came from working in larger companies, I always had insurance. It was always check the box and, yes, I want health insurance and I want medical insurance, all of those things. So now certain things are not in that I had not sorry. Certain things I don't have together, right? I've never gone out and gone shopping for insurance policies. And then I hear words like term life and other stuff that I don't even know. And here I'm thinking, I'm a grown woman. I really should know these things. So again, that was another mark. Like, I got to do that. I'm thinking about money and wealth and ways that I'm growing it and what I have now and what what needs to be paid off. What do I have in an emergency fund in case something happens and I need to pay a car expense or I need to pay some bill that came out of nowhere? Do I have the money to cover that? Do I have the money for braces? So these things are all swirling around in my beautiful neurodivergent brain that never shuts down. And I thought the only way that I'm going to be able to silence this is to take action. So that's what I'm doing here over the next several weeks is I'm bringing in and I'm going to be talking with experts on different subjects. For example, I have adult children. I have a 20-year-old now who still lives in my home, and I have an 18-year-old who is still in high school. And then I have a 16-year-old who's also still in high school. So, with the 18 and 20-year-old who are still living in my home, my 20-year-old is still new in college. There's things that mom still does. And as I'm helping them make their way into adulthood, if something were to happen to them, I need to be able to have that legal medical power of attorney. I think that's what I need. And that's what I'm going to find out. Uh, and I need to have these things in place for the safety and well being of my children. And they need to have these things for me as well. I heard in her book, and this was as of 2018, that 40% of adults don't have enough money to spare to cover a $400 emergency. And this part is what really made me think about widows who may have lost half an income, or maybe they were a stay home parent and a homemaker during their life with their husband, and he was the one or she was the one who was bringing in that secondary or that primary income. So now what's going to happen? Now they don't have as much money coming into the home. What if they began their life of domestic bliss and I hope we can edit this part out, but if not, this is the authentic me, folks. So, what happens if while they are raising children or tending house, doing things on their self separate from stepping outside of the household and working in another capacity, they've never pursued a secondary education? Nowadays, it's like you have to have those credentials in order to really even qualify for any type of entry level position. So there's a lot of different nuances to trying to maneuver in widowhood of figuring out your wealth, figuring out your plan of end of life, what that looks like if you have young children at home, or what it looks like if you have older children at home. Also, she had Chanel Reynolds had talked about in her books about like a digital trail, and those were things that I had never really experienced. And I thought to myself, well, I really don't have that much. I didn't really think that it would be complicated if something happened to me to just divide up my stuff, one to one to each kid, divide it by 4, everything is fine, and that's all there would be to it. And she brought up some amazing points of like it doesn't matter if you have no one that is really around as far as that you would leave your estate to, or maybe if you don't have anything to leave to anyone, someone is still coming into your space and someone still needs to pack up your belongings. Someone will still need to figure out what to do with your belongings, and someone is going to need to make your final arrangements. So, those were points that I had never really considered before. And it really inspired me to want to continue to get my act together. I want to become more organized. I want to have a paper trail so that my children and my family, if something were to happen to me, they would easily find these things to be accessible and to be able to access whatever it is that they need as far as like banking information, mortgage information, the whole 9 yards. Then it came down to also with my final wishes, who would I want to make those decisions and carry them out? And I never really thought about how that's a big decision. Um, who would be prepared and able to say, yes, this is what mom wanted, or this is what Rachel wanted, and be willing to go that extra mile to make sure that it happens in a way that I want it done. And who has the strength, right? Because when my husband had his accident, I was out of body and I was numb. I don't actually remember making a lot of the decisions that I did make. And fortunately, we had conversations. So that part was actually easy. But it was the stuff that came afterwards. And it was also the fact that I was here to take care of the things for the children, for our home. We had to move. These were all parts of the changes that came about in my life that I was able to handle as his wife and as the mother of my children. But if something were to happen to me, I don't have my spouse, my partner. So it just really started to make me consider who was going to be there for me and who I needed to ask if they would be willing to step in the event that that was needed. So I know I've talked longer than I meant to talk, but I feel really passionate about this because it was really scary to come face to face with the thought of I might not wake up from this surgery, and then what is going to happen? So I hope you will tune in to the other guests that I have coming in the near future. We're going to be talking finance. We're going to be talking real estate. We're going to talk about wills and estates. And I don't know, anything else we can think of that's really important for us to be grown-ups. Anyways, that's all. And if you want to learn more about what I do and how to work with me in a deeper way, I invite you to check out my website. It should be in the show notes. It's livingbeyondgriefnow.com. And I'm Rachel Vasquez, a grief warrior. Bye.
Let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long.